Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker. My name is Lisa Gunshore, and I am your host and demystification guide, as always. And I'm coming to you from Laramie, Wyoming. I am road tripping to Salt Lake City to see our lovely Michelle Snelling and Mary Lydia Ryan for a very special event tomorrow night. So I'm pretty excited about that. Everybody who's joining in the live would love to hear where you're from. And we are here with my very favorite yogi and teacher, Satyam. Welcome back, Satyam.
Great to be here. Great to see you, Lisa, and great to see you on the road.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. And I'm really excited about our topic today. I've been looking forward to this for the last few weeks because our topic is I am a yoga teacher, now what? And I think that is like, there's thousands of people that can relate to this because we all go through the yoga teacher training. I've been there too. And then you're like, well, now what do I do? And what am I supposed to do with yoga? How do I develop it? There's so many different places you can go with your education and your lifestyle. So where do you want to start? I love this topic. And for everybody in the live, tell us if you are a yoga teacher, because I'd love to hear that too.
All right. Well, great to be back here. And yeah, this is a topic I thought it's so dynamic and has different aspects to it. And I think it's a needed niche, both on collectively and across the contemporary yoga movement. Of what do we do? How does it work? There's not a real playbook for it. And maybe the existing playbook maybe is based on perhaps protocols that are applied to other professions and not to the field of yoga. It's very easy since there's no written script for yoga. And first off, if you are a teacher or you are a new teacher, welcome, congratulations. It's a great field. It's a great field of life. I won't say it's a great field of business, and I would say that it isn't even a field of business. But in terms of life development and the maximizing your potential on this planet, it's a great start. And one of the things I remember when I was a kid, my father was an attorney, and he said that he went to law school, and when he finished law school, he had no idea how to be a lawyer. And I think that to some degree that's true with a lot of the professions, but yoga and what it is conceived to be is a very vast and dramatic topic, and life endeavor and dedication and commitment. And to think that in 200 hours, one is going to be that based on 200 hours of training, one should think of that initial training period, whatever it is, 200 hours, 500 hours, no amount of hours is that someone else provides to you is going to make you, wholly qualified in every aspect of yoga. Think of it as a stepping stone in your growth, in your progress, in your spiritual journey, in your development as a human being. And come into it with an open mind that, okay, I need to spring forward now. This is my base in which to spring forward. And when seen in that way, any type of yoga teacher training is a great way to launch yourself forward into your career, or into your next phase, I should say. And I really tried to break up today's talk in a variety of things. One is pitfalls, one is strengths, and one is outcomes. And they kind of triangulate and mix and merge. I was hoping to find three very clean pieces, but they mix and merge quite a bit. And I think one major question is, now that you became a teacher, or now that you've been practicing for a while, or now you've gained a little bit of confidence in the field, then what direction do we take it? Do we think, okay, let me now, I've learned some of the lingo, I've learned some of the skill set. Now let me bend it according to who I am. There's an urge to do that, and I think that there's a very positive aspect to doing that. Or should we say, let me let go of everything else I've learned and let me submerge myself into this fully and see where it takes me. Mm. And I'll give up my shot. Mine is to go in the second route. Let go of everything and jump in and see what happens. Find out the best teachers, learn everything you can, and always think, what is the next thing I can incorporate into my life? But I think that there's a happy medium between the two that works extremely well in today's world. And so one of the things I'd like to say is that some of the pitfalls, the easy pitfalls that people come into, is related with expectation. Becoming a teacher, that should not be looked upon as a way to enhance your prestige or enhance your standing, or have it be one more skill set to add to your resume per se. And I think what's wonderful about yoga is that I think what I see is a lot of people come into it, they come into it from a holistic human development perspective, whether it be something on the physical plane like weight loss and maybe overcoming allergies or something, or in the mental plane to de-stress, or a spiritual plane to really endeavor, what is it behind, how do I connect unit mind with something greater? And I think people come into it with some very, very wonderful and sincere and authentic ideas of how they can transform themselves. Mm-hmm. And I would say, don't lose that spark. That spark that got you into it, hold on to that spark and ride it out as if you're water skiing, and you just hold on to that bar and ride with it. And the things that can creep in are the typical things that can creep in anytime: overconfidence, ego, maybe bring in too much. Let's just come up with a common thing. For instance, music. I'm not musically inclined. I wish I were. But I would say, if you're a new teacher and you've got prior skill sets, bring them in. Bring them into the field of yoga, but don't bring it in a way where it will undermine the tenets of yoga. And I think music's a wonderful way, because music has a very it's a very sentient pursuit, and it's a big aspect of a spiritual endeavor in terms of kirtan and chanting and things. So I would say, whether you're a vocalist or if you have a music background, bring that into your yoga teaching. If you're a new teacher, or if you're an old teacher and you haven't brought it in, bring it in. During Shavasana, you can do just even some gentle humming or a guitar string. You don't have to be a pro. You want to be good enough that if one of the students is in the class, can recognize that you're not really, you have to have some musical insight. Otherwise, I would do it too, but I really don't have that. But so it needs some basic, but then that's where you can really bring in and say, that that you bring something more to the field to enhance, and it'll make your class dynamic and it'll bring something in. But you don't want to be going in and start doing Elvis Presley tunes or even Beatles songs even. They may be sentient songs, but those Beatles songs in that whole field of rock and roll, either the lyrics go against the yogic ideal or they may bring in memories for the students of past things. It may be something they went on a date with someone who they had a bad relationship with, or who knows what. But I would say be very careful with whatever skill set you bring in. Or if you're a caterer and you'd like to share food and drink with folks, don't turn it into a wine tasting competition after the class. What you bring in, be authentic, bring yourself to the class, but don't bring in things that will either go against the tenets of yoga or might bring in certain pseudoculture things that we could do better, where we can do better. So take your music and then find out how that music can really become a beautiful piece within the yogic tradition or spiritual tradition of using the music to guide the mind towards a sweet plane. And I think you'll find that maybe you'll add a new dimension to your musical pursuit. So be really broad-minded in what skill set you'd like to bring in to the yoga, to your yoga teaching. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's, it's a good point about bringing in like where we come from, because I think when you go through the yoga teacher training and you're learning the spiritual aspects and the physical aspects, I think that most of the 200-hour trainings take you through like all the different aspects of yoga, but then who you are is going to help guide you in which aspect you really want to focus on. Because we had a teacher who all she does is teach Sanskrit. That's all she does. That's all she does. And then there's other people who just do Ayurveda, and then there's people who just do Vinyasa. And so bringing your personality into which part of yoga, like what you're talking about with the music, is important, because if you're bringing art into it or you're bringing, other things into it, it's important to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to do it in a very conscious and thoughtful manner. And then there's the other thing that there is so much more to yoga than is taught in your 200 or 500-hour training. People dedicate years, and it takes a tremendous amount of engagement of yourself to discover what it is. It's one thing to put it on paper. It's another thing to incorporate into your being, and another thing to really apply your mind to it. And so it needs further rocket fuel on your journey. So just keep on going, keep discovering, keep opening up new pathways and doorways to it. And I think what we have to do is always try and refine our own life practices. So let's say, whether it be like, for example, diet is such a classic one that we should investigate what the yogic diet is and then apply that as best we can in our own lives and to what we teach others in classes. We're so much more effective when we've realized something than when we've heard it from something. For instance, when you watch someone teach a yoga asana to someone, then it's passive experience. But after you've taught it to someone and you've gotten success and you're able to help them move into the pose, then you're emboldened and they're emboldened, because you were able to help someone else advance. And you kind of explored, you experimented, you applied your mind, and you got success with it. And same thing with, there's a lot of yogic practices that happen off the mat that are going to happen in your home. Explore with whatever traditional forms of entertainment you have had in the past. Try new endeavors, like a night of perhaps of what they call silent, an evening of silence, the Monbrat, Mon in silent, a vow of silence, it means in Sanskrit. So there's lots of ways that we can pass our evenings as opposed to going out drinking, hosting a wine party, going out to the movies. There's a lot of things that we can do, such as maybe an evening at home with other family members or not, a vow of silence, or going through stories of, or reading a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, or there's a lot. We have to be ready to open ourselves to further pursuits and to be ready to change our ways of the past and take on new endeavors. And so that will help us in becoming, like, embodying yogic principles that we wish to convey. Just like when you teach the asana, for example, when you change your diet, then there's inherent struggles to that. That's not an easy thing to do. But by going through those struggles, you learn, and you'll be far more empathetic for someone who also goes through those struggles, and you'll also have the wisdom to how to get through on the other side. And that makes you a much more dynamic teacher than to say, oh, well, the yogic diet is a plant-based diet, or it advocates these foods. I don't really do it, but this would be the approach. If you've tried it and you've experimented with it, then that will help a lot in having you become a medium for teaching those yogic ideals, which is what people are looking for. One thing is, don't come into it with an inferiority complex that you're not good enough to teach either. You are good enough. The fact that you are interested means that you have something to share in the field, and you will grow with it. So it's finding that happy medium of don't coming in over the top as a know-it-all, and don't come in underneath and sell yourself short. Come in with who you are, share your strengths, and be ever ready to learn more at the same time, because there's no shortage of things to learn. There's a lot to learn. We're always constantly growing. And the moment we stop, we don't look to learn, we won't learn. And so we always have to do that. And the other thing is, people don't speak as highly of other guides in their life as they do of their yoga teacher. I've met so many people say, I love my yoga teacher. No one speaks of their accountant the same way. Oh, my accountant is just fabulous. I just love him. No one speaks of their accountant like that, but they do of their yoga teacher. So if you're a new teacher, know this, that people go into class wanting to like you. You're coming in from a favorable situation. And the more you're truthful and authentic, and you just be an honest broker. If you don't know something, say, I don't know it, but I'm also looking to learn, and I will get it. Don't fake the Sanskrit pronunciation. So one of your students may know it. And if you fake it, it's just doubly bad. One, you faked it, and two, they understood that was a fake. So, be really honest. One of the great things I learned I went to graduate school in education, and in an adult learning class, I had to facilitate a class. So I broke up the class into teachers and students, and I made everybody in the class teach something to everybody, and I taught it on last night's reading. Half the people in the class didn't even do last night's reading, and one of them had to do it on some type of military campaign, and he was supposed to be the teacher. And one of his students was like a military guy, a military historian, who was also a fellow student in the class. So what I'm getting at is that when you're teaching other adults, you're going to find people in the class who have really awesome skill sets just because they're adults and they've done training, they may know literature, they may know music, they may know a lot. So respect them as learners and as also very skilled and experienced people, and also bring what you have, and just be an open broker with it. Be very forthcoming with what you know, what you don't know. And if you need to study more about a topic that came in, say, hey, that's good. I've got a few ideas on that, but you know what? Let me read up on it more and give you a better answer tomorrow, rather than to wing it off the cuff and to kind of get short with your britches down. You don't want to do it that way. Just be truthful. be truthful to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that always went over students. And again, they're on your side. Most of the students want to really like their yoga teacher. So it's very favorable. It's a very favorable relationship to start.
I want to back up too, because I know this topic is, I'm already a yoga teacher, now what? But we do have a comment from Anne saying she's not a teacher, but she's always ready to spring forward. So I do want to just kind of put it out there, Satyam, like, why does someone want to go become a yoga teacher? Like, I know for me, it was a spiritual decision. But what I found out when I went was there was this beautiful gift of understanding asana and really what it is and how to do it correctly. And so that was like a huge win for me, because I didn't even think about that going into it. Was like learning I really didn't. I was thinking I was going in to learn, this spiritual space because of my background. And so I do want to just throw it out there, like, what are some of the reasons to become a yoga teacher for some of these folks watching who haven't even gone through training yet?
Yeah. Good. Let's break it on down. Let's go into the first one, finance. If you're going into yoga teacher for money, you're knocking on the wrong door. Don't do it.
So true.
You can hardly raise a family doing it. Very few people, make the mega bucks because they've got sponsorships, but it's so don't do it for money. It's not. There's so many other jobs you can do that you make fivefold the money. So don't do it for the money. It's not. It's really not there. There's way too many. There's a lot of teachers at the. So, 2, don't do it to open up your own studio. You opening up your own studio is like opening up a restaurant. You become married to it. You'll be there 100 hours a week, and more often than not, the studio is shut down. That's also another thing. So there are a lot of successful studios. There are a lot of people who are successful making money at it. But if you do it at those two things, more often than not, you're going to fail than succeed. And the pressure's all wrong. The pressure's all wrong. To do it for your bank account, it'll just make you mad at the field of yoga. It's not going to work out. So what are the ways to do it? 1, a lot of people could do it just for continuing education. I'd say more people than not who go to yoga teacher training do it just to expand their own base of knowledge. They have no desire to teach a class. They're not going to open a studio. They just thought, well, this is as good a path as any to bulk up my background. And I think it's a great way. Why not? Another way to do it is to take a lot of to attend seminars and to enhance your background that way. Another thing to do would be to go to a retreat or an ashram for a week. That would also satisfy. So in terms of continuing education, going to yoga teacher training is one way. Yoga teacher training itself is not cheap these days. That's where, you can pay thousands of dollars for that or more, 6, 8. I'm not sure what the going rates are, but that can also be costly. Another way is just to approach your yoga teacher and say, hey, what are some things I can do outside class? What are some readings? What are some life practices? One thing I try and do with students each month is present a monthly challenge. And some of them are more successful than others, but it's a way for people to apply themselves to a particular field, whether it be a lifestyle. Sometimes we do it for plank challenge just to enhance our strength. But like this month's monthly challenge for Renaissance Yoga is attachment challenge, to get to what we'd call just to take a review and to get rid of any attachments. M-O-H-A in Sanskrit means attachments, very binding. What are limiting factors that we've gotten glued up with in life, either because of indoctrination that we've gone through, because of the family we've grown up in, or the school we've attended, or just bad habits we gained along the way, and to let go of those things. But there's a lot that can be done outside the classroom in yoga. So you can always talk to your teacher and say, hey, what are some things that can be done there? And then there's people who go to yoga teacher training because they want to start teaching once a week in addition to their main primary career. That's also fine. That's all legitimate. All I would say is, for whatever reason you want to do it for your own personal growth and for those who you're going to be conveying the knowledge towards. And then it'll come out in a nice way. Yeah, but I'm sure there's other reasons why people go for training. But I think that covers some of the bulk of it. Major, some of the broader elements. Then, so now that we kind of broached into it, let's say you are a teacher and you're teaching the asanas, yoga postures. And well, how do I start bringing in things that we know are beyond the mat that people don't want to come into a full class for, but how do I bring those elements in? A lot of times after class, I'll give a 1 or 2 minute talk, especially if it's when we're on site. Sometimes I don't always do it with when we're teaching online. But one thing is just to pick a new Sanskrit word for you, whatever it is, and try and get the pronunciation proper if you can. Sanskrit pronunciation is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult for the Western tongue. Whatever it is, don't fake it. Say, what I understand this is the pronunciation is. But don't, because whatever the Roman letters are for it, the ABCs, those ABCs do not properly convey the real phonetic pronunciation. So try and find out if there's some, sometimes there are online places that have the right pronunciation with the audio file. But what I mean to say is bring in elements and use the time, the 5 minutes time after Shavasana to give a talk on something that brings in things off the mat. What is the yogic concept of spirituality? What is the yogic concept of or fasting or diet or anything, or any Sanskrit word? There's so many words that get used. What is the real meaning of mantra? What does dharma mean? There's lots of meanings of dharma. How does that apply? So find out a word, study it yourself. That by studying it yourself, then you will grow your background. That will become part of what you've got at your disposal. And then as soon as you study something, then if you teach it right away, all of a sudden you're forced to have a better understanding because you can convey it to something else. A common thing with education, if you ever want to learn anything, become a teacher of that thing. Teach it. Teach it. You want to learn CPR? Teach it. You'll get really good at it. But going to one CPR class, we all know what happens to that kind of. You forget the reps, you forget the rhythm of it. But so as a yoga teacher, use your time as a teacher to embolden your own background by bringing in concepts you might not be that familiar with, and become familiar with it and teach it to someone else. Teach it to your students. Find a section from the Bhagavad Gita that appeals to you and find that story and tell that story after class. And those were ways to broaden our knowledge base. For a while I was teaching. I must have had 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 stories. I don't know. I had a whole notebook of stories, and was just for years I would just tell a different story after every class, and then apply it to yogic principles. And people remembered the stories. It had a positive impact. So I think storytelling is a way. But that was something that appealed to me. Other people can do it with music. Use music, but bring in elements. And I would say the main thing is help people to refine their lives. That is what yoga is all about. Refinement, 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 refinement. And as a yoga teacher, don't get caught up. Constantly refine your life practices. Experiment with the raw foods diet or partial raw foods for a few meals a week. Or I say diet comes up because that's such a dynamic thing. There's so much room for improvement in the traditional American diet. And there's a lot of really positive experimentation. And the good thing about diet, you get the benefit immediately. As soon as you start eating and you start changing it, then you get that benefit. So think of when you come into the field of yoga, think of it as an open sky. because yoga is related with actually all aspects of life. It isn't just a yoga practice. And if you think it is just a yoga practice on the mat, then you're in for a big surprise, because it's a lot more than that. So open up all the doors, and if you don't know, start reaching out to people, write to people, you write to me. I love to get queries about yoga. How does yoga and art, how do the two relate? There's a lot that can be done with it. So we really want to just be open to applying the principles of yoga in different aspects of life. I think that's one really key point. And we find everyone wants a new life set. Even if you teach someone something new they could eat for breakfast in the morning, that's positive. That's a very, very positive thing. And people are looking for new life practices. So I'd say that one, that's a good way to enhance people, to bring yoga in, off the mat. One other thing is come into it with the spirit of sacrifice, of how can I learn how can I learn more, and be open to experimentation. And I think that's there's a fine line of remembering what we've learned in the past, and having the courage and confidence to try something new and do that. And it's okay not to be an expert on anything with yogic spirituality, where you take on universal tenets. This is a whole nother field that needs to be explored and needs to be portrayed, and it needs to be done into the yoga class and in our own lives. People are looking for that dimension of what is it what does spirituality mean? How do we get there from our own unit platform? So there's a lot to be done. If we're open to it, there's a lot that we can learn and express and share with students. And one thing I would be careful of is with yoga and religion, that just be careful of where that intersection. Anyone from any background, anyone who's whatever faith you're from, everyone is welcome to come into the yogic tradition and to practice. And I would say that, oh, bless you there. Good. There was a silent sneeze.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to the yoga with Christianity, like Christian yoga has become an element. And another person wrote a book on yoga body, Buddha mind, which is also okay. But if you're a yoga teacher, remember, find out what the yogic teachings are on those topics. And so that's an important element. If, for instance, the teacher who wrote the book on yoga body, Buddha mind, it makes it look like the yogis have nothing to say about mind, that yoga is only physical. And there's a lot of beautiful things of interwoven between yogic thought and Buddhist thought, and that's all well and good. But we also have to explore what yoga has to offer. So if you're coming into it from a yoga teacher, then your duty is to find out what it is. What is the yogic teaching on those pathways? And then having other outside experts come in, or aspects of stories from other traditions. That's all well and good, but know what the yogic principles are in that. And so now we've kind of covered a gamut of things. Are there any questions that have come in, or do we have there's a few other things here that I have.
Yeah, definitely. For everybody out there that has questions, throw them in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. And Satya, my question for you is, why did you decide to become a yoga teacher?
Right. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't.
What happened? I want to hear your story while we're waiting for questions.
Yeah, sure. Just with I initially I was just looking for a way to live on this planet. And that's how I spent my 20s and early 30s. And then the opportunity came in to teach, and I didn't want to. And they said, you have to. And I kind of did it that way. It was a very short, boring story. And I was horrible at the beginning. I was absolutely a terrible yoga teacher. Because first of all, I didn't know what they were teaching. They were teaching yoga asanas, and I was familiar with the asanas, but I was far more familiar with yogic spirituality, yogic meditation, yogic lifestyle. That's what I've been doing for 15, 18 years. And to teach a class, a flawless flow type of class, left and rights and this thing and that thing, I figured I could get good at, but I wasn't no natural at the beginning. And let that be a lesson for any yoga teacher that everybody comes into it with their own strengths. And you don't have to pattern your class after what the next door is, what you see on YouTube or what other people are doing. And I don't think the book's been written on what a good yoga class is either at this point. It should combine some type of physical element. It should combine some type of breathing. Learn the yogic aspects of breathing and practice it on your own, and make breathing something that is totally alive and that can really when you take a breath, you should be able to change your whole psychic domain. It needs that type of discipline practice outside of class. So the more we can make the yogic teachings our own, that's the main thing. That the more we can apply ourselves to those principles and become a living embodiment of those principles, then that's definitely the winning ticket. And then we don't need to bring in other things. We become. There's plenty of teach within yoga. And at the beginning of the class, at the beginning of this lecture, I was saying, okay, if you have your music, if you have different things to bring in, and do that. But also, the field of yoga is vast. And learn those things, and breathing itself, you can dumb it down to a 2-step preschool lesson that no adult wants to do and sit down and learn. Or you can make it something where you have really experienced how breath and mind coincide, where the wavelengths of mind change, where the mind is ready to go beyond its unit self and slip out of the egotistic trap of ego. And when you've discovered that type of space, or you've applied that, you've challenged yourself to learn that, then you're going to be able to talk about breathing every day, all day, and it'll never get boring, because each and every breath is dynamic, because it's not just an external skill, but it's something that's a part of you, and that you can convey something, and you'll always feel inspired to teach that point. So the more we can inculcate those teachings, and people recognize that as well. But I think that's a key and that's a key for teaching anything. The more people feel that you are that you're the living embodiment of that, not in a state of perfection or all knowingness or some great thing, but that you try your earnest best to emulate that and to embody that. And then whatever shortcomings we have and failings we have, so be it. And we're always working on those. That's a given.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too to just really take the alchemy of the students that you're with in a yoga teacher training, because everyone does come from a different space. And I know in my experience with yoga teacher training, we had some real athletes in the yoga teacher training who were really focused on the physical aspect. And when we got to jamas and niyamas and meditation and some of these other things, they were struggling. It was hard. And then for someone like me, and there was a few of us in there where that was our life, like, you know, talking about, you know, living in a space of authenticity and compassion and generating, you know, bodhicitta and all these things. We were in that space already and had a meditation practice. And so whereas when I was trying to do, you know, downward dog, I was struggling physically. And so we all helped each other, is my point. And so I think, you know, it's really important, I think, to take from each other, because I learned from some of the athletic students that were in my group how to do some things I never thought I would do. I did a handstand, never thought I would do it, because they understood how the body worked. And then I was able to help them when it came to breathing and meditation and understanding what brahmacharya was. Like, I was able to share my own experiences with them. So I think, you know, getting the most out of the teacher training itself is really valuable, because it is going to help you with where to go afterwards. Because I know that some of us that were in that class, some of the athletics folks were just looking to add something to their repertoire as a personal trainer, as a fitness teacher. And they walked out of there with like completely different dietary ideas, completely different ways of living. And, you know, for somebody like me, I walked out of there understanding that my body could do things differently. And so I just think it's important to note, like, part of your yoga journey as a yoga teacher is to take from your colleagues, the other students, and acknowledging what everyone has to bring, because it's like one big stew pot of stuff usually when you go to a training, I think.
Yeah, no, that's so well put. I mean, a lot of people learn more from their peers than they do from their teachers. That's a common known point. And also, congratulations to those guys who are athletic and picked up other new aspects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the yogis say that sometimes you're in the role of teacher, and a lot of times we're students and students of life. And the more we harness the idea that I know not, then there's space in the mind to incorporate new ideas. And that's really wonderful. And so even when we all come into something from a particular idea or understanding or wanting to learn something, and if we that we always want to have space in the mind that we can learn other aspects as well. No, that's what very well put about, you know, this melange of things that you will be exposed to in the teacher training, and for that matter in the field of yoga. And
well, and you're reminding me now, I can't think of the Sanskrit word, but you might know it. You know, studentship, like being a really good student, you know, there is a Sanskrit word for it, but it's this idea of really, you know, like you're saying, like, you don't know everything. Going into your training and even your own classes with sort of this humility of, I don't know everything, and we're all learning together, and really being a good student can make you a really good teacher, because the more we learn, the more we don't know. And I think as teachers, no matter what we're teaching, going into it with kind of this openness of, you know, somebody still may teach you something in your class that's a student that you didn't even know.
Yeah, no. And this is going to happen. This is the thing with yoga teacher. You know, you're not teaching 10-year-olds. You're teaching 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. They have a lot of life experience. Give maximum respect to your students. I mean, they may not know certain things about yoga, but they're going to know a lot of things that you don't know. And that'll help the quote unquote student teacher relationship. I don't have the Sanskrit word you're talking about in terms of student, but disciple comes to mind. And disciple means discipline, to approach it to the discipline, to mold your mind to that discipline. And yoga is a series of disciplines. And the more we're able to apply ourselves to that, then the better off we are. And a lot of people come out of teacher training with the ability to teach a class, but and a little bit of exposure to yogic thought, yogic philosophy, yogic lifestyle, but it's not like but those were not necessarily embedded into you. It's not going to happen when you go for a weekend, 1 weekend a month for 8 months, so there's a lot of self-discovery that needs to happen, and there's a lot of scope to bring that in. So as teachers, always remember that what's the next thing on my roadmap to learn. And the more you bring into your roadmap, then naturally the more you'll have to share. You'll be a walking wealth of information for your students, and you'll be able to do far more than to lead a yoga class. When someone asks you a question that's related with yogic thought, yogic philosophy, yogic lifestyle, or certain life scenarios, you're not just going to give a bogus answer. You're going to give a wealth of information because you've applied yourself, you've struggled with it, and maybe you're still working out how to become that. But it'll be so much. You'll have so much more to share. It'll be a very colorful answer rather than the back of a cardboard cereal box answer about yogic philosophy, because we didn't really cover that one. And yogic philosophy is just like, this is the one thing that yogic philosophy is just, it's what you think. But yogic philosophy is well triangulated, and no one would, if someone said, "Hey, what type of frog is that?" and you wouldn't say, "Oh, well, that's a red, black, spotted porcupine frog." No one would, because they know that the Western world has nicely triangulated. All the species have names, and if you just give it up and you just kind of fake it, you're going to get caught on it. But yogic philosophy is not known in the West, and so what I see a lot of happening is people just, whatever comes in their mind, and just saying that, and that doesn't cut it. If you want to give a yogic teaching, know the yogic teaching, learn the yogic teaching, go slow with it. Figure out what does, start with the basics. Start with Ashtanga Yoga. What does dharana mean? What do the 10 points of Jama and Niyama mean? Learn one of those each by one. You may not learn all 10, but learn all 10 at once, but learn one. Learn the ins and outs of it, teach that thing, apply it in your life, and then move on to the next one. It's far better to know one thing and have applied it and become properly knowledgeable about than to just kind of have a half-baked knowledge of it. So yogic philosophy is known. And someone I saw on a podcast once said, well, only 10% of yoga is known and the other 90% is not known, so we can kind of just wing it, and why should I be held accountable for it? And I felt that was the biggest pull, because there are people out there who do know. Don't think there aren't people who don't know. They do, and you'll get nabbed on it. And it's all on video, and in due course, people will go back and they'll see who was right and who wasn't right. And you'll live, that will be your legacy. So don't think that because 90% don't know, I can just say what I want, or I can just bring in all my bad habits, or I can retox and detox, or I can do whatever I want. It's not that way. There is a method for it. There is a rhyme to it. And yogic thought is very well triangulated. And we learn little by little. There's a lot. And I would say, if someone doesn't know yogic philosophy, go through Jama and Niyama, because there's a lot of websites and books and all sorts of things, and there's a lot of cross discussion. And if you read three different, if you go through 3 different renditions of it, you'll get a basic idea, a true example. There might be some mixes and matches here and there, but you'll get the basic idea, and start with that, and get those 10 under your belt, firmly under your belt. Learn what they are, and then you'll be able to get that, well, okay, how does that apply to Ashtanga Yoga? And then get that branch in, that umbrella in. And then how does Ashtanga Yoga relate to the greater body of yogic spirituality? And what aspects of the Bhagavad Gita are yogic and what are based on Hinduism? And I mean, what I mean to say is build small, get it down. Don't confuse yourself with trying to chase after 1,000 ideas at once, and don't get misconceived into thinking that nobody knows yogic spirituality. There are people out there who know it, and they know it well. So, but If you learn a little bit and branch out little by little, that will serve you well. And that's how we all learn. The other great way to learn is to record it. And then when you're doing little things around the house, wear it and put it in your earphones. And when you're doing, this is how I learned yogic philosophy. We had tapes from teachers in India. We were going question and answer. We developed a huge repertoire, hundreds and hundreds of hours of tapes. And that's what we listened to. That was our radio station. When I was driving, when I was washing dishes, when I was doing my laundry, when I was doing anything, I was listening to those things. And it really went inside the mind. It was extremely helpful to incorporating that so that when we spoke, we were reflecting those ideas and not some other teaching. So everybody has the capacity to learn. Start small, build your base, and you'll connect idea to idea, and then teach those to others. Yeah.
I love it. Well, we don't have any questions. I'd love for you to share, because you obviously teach, and you also do satsang and teach outside of just asanas. So share with everybody how they can find you and what you have upcoming that they can connect in with.
Oh, sure. They can find me at Renaissance Yoga, Ren Yoga. If you don't know how to spell Renaissance, Ren Yoga, RENYOGA.com. And on a lot of social media platforms, you can find me there. And I do relish queries. So write me. I'll get back to you. And I do. Anyone who has an open interest in learning more, then I always make time for that, and I'll write you back. And upcoming things, gosh, I don't have a whole lot upcoming. I have a few things here and there, but write me and we'll figure out what your interests are, and we'll get something for you.
I love it. Well, this is like a juicy topic, because I think a lot of us have gone through, a lot of people go through yoga teacher training and then don't know what to do, and I felt really blessed to be guided in the direction I wanted to go. But I think if I hadn't have been, I don't know that I'd know, what to focus on or where to go. And so I think a lot of folks are looking for that direction. So I really appreciate you talking about this today, Satyam, because I think it's important.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting topic. And, I think that if folks are able to narrow down their interests, and there's a lot out there, and people should feel like there's an open scope, and there's tremendous, the field of yoga is going to expand. It's not going to minimize. It's going to go into colleges. It's going to go into high schools. It's going to go into counseling experiences. It's going to go into medical therapies. So just go into it and jump all in, and you'll find your niche. And I think Lisa, you're coming back here, but with the field of yoga, it is an expansive model. You can see it coming into medical therapies. You can see the cross section between yoga and physical therapy. You can see the cross section with yoga and potential different treatments and different forms of treatment, whether it be water therapy, naturopathy, homeopathy. And so the field of yoga is going to expand. It will grow, and people should be ready for that. The field is ripe for that. So it's a great opportunity. And one thing I think Lisa locked herself out here, so I'm just here broadcasting. One aspect, one story I'd like to share, that people you have to feel confident with what you're doing with it. And there's one story that came to mind, that one time there was a community that they were having difficulties with a local snake. And so when the local yogi came through, they would come through from time to time from the ashrams, from their abodes, and they'd check in on what the villagers were doing and what was going on. And they'd say, how are the crops? How are the education system? How's everything going? They say, yes, everything's going well. And they said, but Yogi, we do have one problem. He said, what's that? He said, we have this snake that is chasing down all the students and all the children and scaring the children. Can you go and calm that snake down? Can you talk to that snake? So the yogi went over and he found that snake in the hole and he waited outside, and the snake came out, and the snake had a look of terror on it and ready to attack. And the yogi just did a little bit of meditation, and the snake kind of relaxed a little bit. And then they had a heart-to-heart. And what had been going on is that the snake was chasing students all over the place and all the young children of the neighborhood. And the yogi said, look, you need to chill out, snake. You need to learn a little bit. You need to take on some meditative qualities. So he taught the snake some yoga, some meditation, some pranayama. And the snake was like, perfect for me. I love this. And so the snake did those practices. And the next time the students would go by, the young children would go by the snake hole, they would tempt the snake, and the snake wasn't coming out and chasing them anymore. So they got more and more courageous, and they began taking the snake and throwing it down and catching the snake and winging it around in circles and doing all sorts of stuff. And the snake was taking a beating. And a few months later, the yogi came through the community, and he said, how's everything going? He said, how are the crops? How's the education system? How's all the families doing? And he said, very good, yogi. Everything's going fine. And what about that snake? What happened with the snake? And they said, whatever you told that snake, that worked out beautifully. That snake doesn't bother anyone anymore. And Yogi got very happy that it worked so well. And then he went over and went to the snake hole, and he asked the snake, and the snake appeared, and the snake was totally tattered on its deathbed and almost destroyed. And the yogi was aghast. He said, what happened to you? What happened to you? And the snake said, well, you taught me some meditation. You taught me to relax. You taught me all these spiritual techniques. And I did those things. I became relaxed. And this children were throwing me and whipping me down. And I lost my food. I lost my home. They nearly broke my spine. And the yogi said, oof, I taught you those things so that you would stop exploiting and scaring the children. But it did not mean that you should stop being a snake. You should remember your dharma in this world. So you be a snake. You protect yourself, but don't attack them unnecessarily. So then the next day when the children came up and other people came up to the snake hole, then the snake stood up and the children stood back. And the snake, then there was a very comfortable balance between the two. The snake stopped chasing the children and terrorizing them all over the neighborhood. And the children also knew to keep their safe distance from the snake. And there was a natural, comfortable respect in life. And here it is that we're going into the world as teachers, as yoga teachers, as trainers, as practitioners, that we should protect our boundaries, but we should also have full respect for those around us. So sometimes, when you're a teacher, you want to please everyone. You can't please everyone. You have to stand up for the ideals that you're teaching. You cannot please everyone with your answers. You have to represent the yogic ideal and take it or leave it from there, but you have to be respectful, be kind, be loving, be caring and compassionate with your teachings. But don't lose your teachings in the process. Don't forget you're a yoga teacher. You're not teaching anything else. And just like the snake, remember it's a snake, we should remember our yoga teachers, we should remember our discipline, and we should take that into the world as best we can and help others progress and share those teachings accordingly. Okay, I'm going to close out this. I don't know if we're still broadcasting here, but I'll close out here. Thanks everyone for listening, and look forward to hearing from you and talking more. Namaskar.